So the choir is now going to sing just that, just as I am, without one plea. Just before I call on the congregation to stand and sing the last two stanzas with us, some of you will have attended the Billy Graham Crusades at the Sydney Showground and the Sydney Cricket Ground in 1959 and later. Would some of you like to show your hands? There's certainly a number in the choir who actually did that. Well, obviously this is a crowd of very young people. We don't see too many. But I can tell you that there's plenty in the choir who actually attended that crusade, including myself. Every evening, Billy Graham would invite people from the overflowing showground stands to come forward and accept Jesus Christ. And every evening, hundreds of people came forward. Every evening, the choir would sing what you've just heard, just as I am. Now, the people who came forward at the Crusades did some unusual things. First of all, some of the people who came forward to give their lives to Christ, at the same time, handed in house-breaking tools. They were going to use them for crime, but they handed them in because they'd given their lives to Christ. Next, one man came along and he totally stunned the councillors. He handed in a revolver. Now, during the period of the Crusades, would you believe that 30% of the total population in Australia actually listened to Billy Graham at some stage or other? It went through all the capital cities and some regional cities of Australia. 146,000 people gave their lives to Christ. Have you got any idea what that means? It means that if this auditorium was filled from wall to wall, you would have to fill it 165 times just to cover the people who gave their lives to Christ. What a wonderful result. Of those people who gave their lives to Christ, it was very interesting because the Billy Graham Crusade came from the United States. They weren't in a position to continue the ministry of these people. However, they had trained 9,000 counsellors to help these people, and then eventually they actually showed them to a local congregation. Would you believe, I'm sure some of you have been to St. Stephen's in Macquarie Street here. St. Stephen's received 600 new members through that one crusade. For the 2 years following the Crusades, alcohol consumption decreased by 10%. That's interesting. Bible sales increased by 300%. Crime rates, which had been increasing dramatically, simply stopped growing. A Sydney District Court magistrate reported that alcohol-related crime had dropped by 50%. Business reported that bad debts were surprisingly being repaid at such a rate, it was like an epidemic. People coming forward with their bad debts. At one Billy Graham crusade, two brothers, Peter and Philip, decided to give their lives to Christ. Now, they were just ordinary guys. So together they went forward, again with the choir singing, "Just as I Am." Incredibly, those two young men not only gave their lives to Christ, but they went on to study in divinity, and it led them to becoming very famous in Sydney. Who has heard of Sydney's Anglican Archbishop, Reverend Peter Jensen? He was one of the brothers. And Philip, the other brother, became Sydney's Anglican Dean, Reverend Philip Jensen. Just two brothers out of the crowd that came to "Just as I Am." Now you may well wonder, why would Billy Graham play that hymn at every single crusade? It's what we call an invitational hymn. What many people do not know is the reason. Here it is. 25 years before that crusade, Billy Graham, in 1934, had given his life to Christ. Remarkably, he did so in response to the hymn, "Just as I Am." So let's rise and let us recommit our lives to our Lord as we sing "Just as I Am" without one plea.